Nature Reserve, and Dr. Paul Cromot and Andre Willoughby will present to us. Welcome, Dr. Cromot. Dr. Cromot is doing fantastic work in the Eastern Cape. Then how many of you met Mr. Cromot at the previous presentation? What they do is quite amazing.
Thank you very much. And today I'm hoping to take you on a thing that actually is an event that happened about 80,000 years ago on the Eastern Cape Coast. And that was, there was a particular indigenous person walking along the sand dune. And we still do that today. But fortunately for us, those particular footprints still exist in a fossilized form in the rock at Nahoon Point Nature Reserve. And really, our little sign for the Nahoon Point Nature Reserve is the footprint. And the key thing that we're wanting to get across today is that we need to tread lightly on the earth. And that's really what this project has been about. Right, just to show you where this particular reserve is, it's right in the center of Buffalo City on the coastline. That green part next to the Nahoon Point Nature Reserve sign is exactly where it is. Next one, please. Okay, right, and that's a bit of a better view, which shows the extent of the urban impact on this particular area of nature reserve. And this area in 2004 was totally abused. It was overgrown with the alien invader. People dumped all their rubbish there. It was invaded by a whole lot of vagrants and criminals. And in fact, we had up to, on average, 2 to 3 rapes, car hijackings, attacks, knifings in this particular area on a regular basis up until 2004. So in terms of that, it was the gem of East London, but entirely unrehabilitated, entirely discarded, and a really bad place to go. Right, next one. So our objective in getting this nature reserve was to, in fact, look at maintaining the natural functioning of the littoral active zone, our little rock pools and the sea life, which are superb, but were actually being pulled out by any Dick, Tom and Harry and destroyed. Next, please. And we wanted to maintain the productive capacity of the coastal zone. And as you can see, those are dolphins, bottlenose dolphins, and that was actually taken at Nahoon Point. Next, please. What we did, and this particular footprint, which is world famous, and we'd like to see it become a World Heritage Site, this particular site, it is now protected through this program and is available to the Albany Museum and international researchers to come and study it. Before, it was just in the open, and people actually went along with pickaxes to try and dig out further examples of these fossil footprints. We also have, about 300 years ago, a Stone Age village in that area, which is now protected within the reserve too. We protected the area from human exploitation. We've looked at stopping people felling coastal milkwoods, beefwoods, and a whole range of indigenous trees, provided opportunities for jobs in the area, and removed the alien vegetation. And we provide as a controlled and safe environment. Before, you'd be lucky if you got 15 to 20 people of a day wandering around in that area, and mainly men traveling in 2s or 3s. Nowadays, and I use my own family as an example, my wife goes down at any time she has free to go and walk along the beach. My child and children go down and surf during the weekdays when there are no sort of huge events happening, and it's highly safe to go there now. It is the jewel of East London, from a tourist, from an environmental point of view, and from a paleoanthropological view. And creating this reserve has helped us to do that. Next, please. What have we done? We've helped to create 1,000 meters of boardwalks. That's a kilometer. Over 7 kilometers of fencing to fence it off and provide safety. We removed alien vegetation from 230 hectares of coastal forest and rehabilitated and brought back plants that were being wiped out. We've employed 200 people from the communities of Duncan Village, Umdansane, and the surrounding areas of East London, and got them working. We've got the reserve approved and registered by both Buffalo City and the province. So it is now a protected area where before there were very great temptations, and there were a lot of people who were wanting to build fancy holiday homes, which would have excluded this wonderful resource from most of the population of Buffalo City. Next, please. What we've now got is we've got funders coming in. We've got adventure and environmental education happening on a large scale, in that we've got all the schools from the greater East London and its hinterland coming in for environmental education. We've got a centre, and we've got NGOs and businesses who are busy taking people on environmental education programs. We've also developed 12 kilometers of hiking and nature trails which are being used regularly, and in fact a very popular marathon now runs through those hiking trails. We've got it promoted as a local and an international destination. People actually come to Nahoon Point Nature Reserve because this is one of the oldest footprints known to man. There's this wonderful environmental education centre, and you can have fun. Next, please. The actual environmental centre, I had one comment that said it's a remarkably ugly building, but we built it in the shape of a footprint, specifically to honour and acknowledge that ancestor, predecessor of ours from 80,000 years ago, that their footprint in fact is duplicated in this kind of footprint that can help us to tread lightly on the earth. This is the facility. It is built in the shape of a footprint. It hosts numerous conferences, and every day school children are coming through for environmental education. We've created jobs, coastal rangers, trained people with accredited training, and we've got the reserve up and running. And most importantly, from a sustainability point of view, Buffalo City has taken it over. They've created posts, they've got budget items, and they've got a management plan which has been approved by them and the Provincial Department of Economic Affairs and Environment. We've got massive use by people on an ongoing basis, and on the bottom right-hand corner you'll see all the oldies go there too, for walks and adventures in the Nahoon Park, Nahoon Point Nature Reserve. Next, please. Outcomes, schools are involved, they deal with the cleanup. Next. What it has done is it's changed what was a rather shoddy piece of land which had tremendous potential, was a jewel for the city, back into the jewel. It has galvanized people, and how we've done it is to engage people in full participation. We went through an extensive workshopping process, and we've developed a whole community mobilized around keeping this going. So that in fact, at the end of the day, what we found is that even when Buffalo City isn't keeping to its thing, it gets nailed in the Daily Dispatch, it gets nailed in council, and in fact the people have continued and take it. And Buffalo City is not looking so good in the newspaper these days. The reserve continues, maintenance continues, staff are running it, and the people of East London from all walks of life are loving this reserve. Those are just some last pictures go through. That's the sustainability plan from Buffalo City with their budget and their activities. Just flick right through. Various things they're actually doing, their plans, who's doing it, where they're getting funding from, etc., etc. and that's their management plan, and Daimler Chrysler continuing funding. So from 2004 to 2010, we have a program that continues. Thank you.
So, questions? It's a real 2010 sustainability program. They've got Jerry?
Thank you for a very valuable presentation. A good piece of work here. I call it an excellent piece of nature conservation and a good example of sustainability. Now, is there any slight indication somewhere that there will be government interference?
Government interference? None at all. Because we have it registered as both at the city level and at the provincial level as a nature reserve, the likelihood that that government would interfere in terms of breaking into that reserve, I don't believe so. And so it's protected by institutional and legal processes, which makes it more difficult. If they were to find something incredibly valuable there, then there might be a threat. But we believe that the community has such an ownership of the thing through their own environmental trust, where they also raise funds, which will help, and the conservationists are quite mobilized and ratepayers in Buffalo City. And because everybody's children and families are using it, I believe that is the strongest protection. That of a forewarned, forearmed and mobilized populace and citizenry who can protect their own assets and maintain them.
Sure.
I think it's fantastic project. It's great to read about it. There's so much land around the country that can happen in a similar way. I was curious about whether your organization seems to be able to do projects like this very well. If you were going to do this in some other place, for example, the Berg River, my son, when I was reading this the same day, my son was doing a report for school about pollution in the Berg River estuary and how this is, unless it's protected, we will lose it. What are you doing to try to help other groups around the country? Is it just limited because you had those contacts in the community to this area, or could it be replicated in other places?
Firstly, we're pleased to say that Port Elizabeth, for example, in the Cape Recife area, have taken it on. They're not necessarily using us, but they've engaged extensively with both Buffalo City and ourselves. So in that sense, we're very pleased that we don't even have to do it. Some other people are saying, this is a good idea, let's do it. Where we are also involved is on the Chalumna River, moving down the coast now. We've been working for the last 3 years on developing with the 21 villages on the Chalumna coast, from the Chalumna to the Hamburg River, which is the next section of the coast, to actually work on developing a similar estuarine development and conservation area. We're calling it the Chalumna River Nature Camp and estuarine protection. So that's working well. So we kind of working mainly on a request basis, and so we go where people ask us in the community, in the Chalumna, the communities in the Chalumna have asked us, and we've been working with Buffalo City, in fact, in rolling out in that area. DEAT have just recently approved 5 million rand for the Chalumna one. So please watch this space. We're hoping to get it moving.
We being who?
Sorry?
We being who?
In terms of the Chalumna?
No, yeah, we small project. You say
Okay.
we are doing it.
Okay, the Small Projects Foundation is the NGO that I represent. And we work with the communities, with local authorities, with province. And I heard a comment, making a comment myself, that even though it's difficult working with provinces and municipalities and authorities, at the end of the day, they are the long-term sustainability for our country. And we found if you stick with it and you keep knocking until your knuckles are bloody, you will get through. You will succeed as long as you have the communities with you. And I think that's a secret. Build from the communities, and you are unassailable. with your programs.
Any other questions? Andre and then Cheryl?
There was a comment in our paperwork about who an award would go to if this project got an award. Is it to the NGO, which clearly is doing amazing work, or does it go to the current management of the park, who is doing the municipality, or a combination of both? Might be a question to Rhoda as well.
Can I answer that? As you might have noticed, Buffalo City, as I mentioned, has a leadership vacuum at the moment. We've got very good officials working there, but my suggestion to the Impumelelo Award, if we were to win this, that we actually make that money available specifically for Nahoon Point, make it available to the Small Projects Foundation, who will ensure that it is used only for the works of the reserve, and that would be my best suggestion. We would in fact pass it on to the reserve activities directly. If it goes into Buffalo City's general revenue account,
It's gone.
it is gone. So that would be my suggestion.
Any other question to Dr. Paul? Cheryl?
Just your comment about community buy-in. It's two questions for me. The one is the kind of education that goes in, because often problems arise around poorer communities and their understanding of just the need for conserved land and so on, and the use of that land. I mean, what sort of education happens in communities in terms of getting them to also use it, so it's not seen as something that is a middle class facility rather than a poor one. And then coupled with that is just, is there anything around just the basic procurement and the provision of services in terms of making it beneficial for the communities, the poorer communities? Because that's usually quite an important thing in terms of buy-in to the conservation of the land. And often the kind of space where people also, I believe wrongly sometimes, lobby government, local government, to oppose land under conservation when there's such a need for land for other purposes, of course, once it's, truth, but it's
Thank you very much for that question. Those questions. The first one is in terms of community participation, and we use participatory learning and action workshops to engage communities, and we go down to ward committee level in Ndanthani, in Duncan Village, in the more affluent suburbs, and we actually go and talk with the people, explain what it is that they have as an asset. Also, and very importantly, in the environmental field, we've had too many promises to poor communities that this is going to create hundreds of jobs. We do a demarketing in that. We say, this is not going to create a lot of jobs, but it's going to provide a facility for you as a community, and this is how it can. These will be the opportunities in terms of small entrepreneurs, small business, as subcontractors, contractors, but that's the limit. And thereafter, it's going to be your asset. It's not going to create 5,000 jobs and many things. And that's a crucial thing in that community marketing and participation. And we got them to identify what were the key things they wanted. And the key thing that for example, children from Dansani and Duncan Village wanted, people there, was for their children to be able to go and learn about the sea and enrich their classes and schools in terms of their natural sciences and whatever. And that's what we used to actually make sure that this environmental education wasn't just for affluent schools or whatever. So that's how we got the participation. And from each of those ward type committee meetings, not committee meetings, participatory learning and action workshops, we then moved to higher levels, and eventually, finally, even the designs, which somebody, as I said, mentioned was remarkably ugly, was approved through a community representative process, where from those ward meetings we got people to come through, and eventually at the East London Museum we got the architects to present the designs, what we were doing on layouts, and we got those representatives who'd come through from those kind of meetings, including councillors and the rest, to buy into what they wanted. So that was participation. In terms of entrepreneurs, major way we went was, firstly, in terms of boardwalks, we actually got small black entrepreneurs trained in boardwalks, and we actually put out the tenders in terms of small entrepreneurs. So we cut it into small pieces, and we actually provided supervision and support. In terms of alien vegetation removal, what we did there was to actually train unemployed people, and we had up to 200 at any one time working in that reserve, working under team leaders who we trained. Okay, so it was accredited training in alien vegetation control, one of the courses, first aid, and then in terms of the team leaders, what we looked at doing was to train them in small business skills, a program called the One-Up Business Skills. The Township MBA was another term for it, which is accredited with the services CETA. And what we looked at there was to getting them involved as small contractors and getting them onto Buffalo City's list as people who can continue to do things. And in fact, that has continued. This particular program and another one which we then continued with in Mdantsane to provide contractors for Buffalo City, where they do put out work for landscaping, cleaning up, etc. They hire these kind of people. The Footprint Cafe itself, which is at the environmental centre, was put out and was provided to a small black entrepreneur who continues to run that. The rangers themselves have been employed by Buffalo City, who we trained, and they continue to run. The organisation Jonginange, we can't claim all the credit for them, but we've certainly worked with them to develop the environmental education program, and they've set up, and they're employing some of the other rangers that weren't employed by Buffalo City, running these educational programs and taking groups on tours and hikes along the thing. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Christina?
I just wanted to ask, Mercedes-Benz, they funded a substantial amount of this project. Were there any requirements attached, or how did you acknowledge? I mean, is a one room of the building called the Mercedes-Benz room, or whatever? Sorry?
Yes, Mercedes-Benz were very insistent that their brand had to appear quite prominently. From our perspective and from Buffalo City, we were quite happy to hook them. And so we said we'd give them the whole ball of the foot, the front and the toes, and put the sign up saying, go, the Mercedes-Benz Environmental Education Centre. And what they undertook to do was to guarantee to provide at least 3 years funding and to reconsider after that. So for us, that was a win-win situation. Yes. We already had the structure. The fact that they were going to fund what would continue there was just great.
Good. Thank you. Thank you a lot, Dr. Cromer. Excellent. The small project do amazing work. Thank you very much. Now, one of the judges has said that she's hoping that from now on the projects would deteriorate. The points are very high. That's what we do. We look for excellence. And there's a lot of excellence in the front.